think I hear it. I think I heard the clock, so it looks like, yeah, so welcome everyone. We're really excited to host 111 places in Atlanta that you must not miss. We have the book right here. And we're excited that Travis is able to come here and present. This was something that we've been working on for a little bit. I first met him when he came here because on page 64, the DeKalb History Center is featured. So we're excited to be able to learn more about different places and yeah, have him here talking. Just a few housekeeping, if you can make sure that your microphone's muted. And also this will be recorded. So if you shouldn't be on screen, but if you prefer not to be on video at all, feel free to take your camera off and you definitely won't be on screen, but this will become public afterwards so many people can watch. All right, with that said, I'll turn it over to Travis and looking forward to it.
Hi, Marissa. Thank you for having me. As you know, I've been a fan of the DeKalb History Center for a number of years, so I was thrilled to be able to include it in the book. For those who may not be in DeKalb County or in Atlanta, the DeKalb History, actually DeKalb County is older than Atlanta, so there's a lot of history here. I encourage you to follow their social media channels for announcements of events. Consider becoming a member and definitely put it on your must-see list post-COVID. So today I'm going to jump right in and talk about a few places in the book, a couple of them in DeKalb County, and I'll be talking about places in DeKalb and Metro Atlanta. After I get through the first slide, we'll jump into, or I'll tell you a little bit about me and more about the book, and then we'll go back into and talk about some other places in Atlanta. So I want to share my first slide with you. Let's see. In just a second. Let's see. You've seen that one already, so hang on one second. Sorry about this, guys. There we go, there we go. All right, so we're gonna do a little time travel. We're gonna time travel 10,000 years, which I bet a lot of Atlantans did not know that we could do. We're gonna start with the two places that are in DeKalb County. The first one, you see a mummy coffin lid on your left. This is on campus of Emory University at the Carlos Museum. Carlos Museum is home to the oldest Egyptian mummy in the Western Hemisphere. Pictured is not that mummy. This is a coffin lid of someone else whose name I cannot pronounce. It's about 37 letters, slight exaggeration, but I'll try. It's Lot Teyes Heret. And it's just one of the many coffin lids and mummies at the Carlos. The Carlos acquired their Egyptian collection, started in 1921, and it's grown significantly since. The Carlos Museum, actually I take that back, their ancient Egyptian collection dates back to 1876. The oldest Egyptian mummy that's just a few feet away from the one pictured here was acquired in 1921. Emory's first campus was in Oxford, Georgia, and the artifacts were later moved to Emory's new campus in in DeKalb County in 1919. So when you go, definitely check out the Egyptian collection, but they also have a phenomenal Greek and Roman collection and modest Asian and African collections, and a phenomenal Americas collection. And in the galleries for the Americas, the wood floors have inlaid maps that show where you would be in South America if you were looking at the artifacts on display, which is it's really, really cool. All right, let's fast forward about 4,000 years. This is a gravity monument. It's also on the grounds of Emory University, but it's kind of in the woods. It's behind the physics building, and it's tied to physics. It was placed by the Gravity Research Foundation, the founder of which was Roger Babson, who was an MIT graduate, and he also founded Babson College. He spent most of his later life dedicated to defeating and controlling gravity. He had lost his older sister to drowning in childhood, and later lost a grandson to drowning. So he had a really bad grudge against gravity. A friend of his came along and encouraged him to start an organization for the learning and understanding of gravity, thus the creation of the Gravity Foundation. That was back in 1949. This monument was placed at Emory in 1963 and was coupled with a cash gift of $5,000 for the physics department. Also in 49, the foundation started an essay contest, and the essays had to be about gravity. And one of the winners of the essay contest was world-renowned Stephen Hawking. And if anyone who knows me, I'm a huge science geek, so that was like really cool to me. All right, let's move ahead about another 6,000 years. The silver door you see on the right is the Crypt of Civilization. This is on the campus of Oglethorpe University, the university being named for James Oglethorpe, who was the founder of the Georgia colony. This university has been around for a very long time, but moved to its current location on Peachtree Road in 1919. So it's been there for more than 100 years now. Back in the 30s, Dr. Thornwell Jacobs, who's now considered the grandfather of time capsules, created this time capsule known as the Crypt of Civilization. There are about 4,000 artifacts in it, and it ranges from models of the pyramids, Stone Mountain, Eiffel Tower. There are recordings by Franklin Roosevelt, Adolf Hitler. There's a quart of beer, a donut cutter, a fly swatter. There are no precious metals or gemstones, so it perfectly captures life in America pre-1940s. The cool thing about it is that it's not scheduled to be opened until the year 8113. None of us are likely to get to see that, but anyone who contributed to building or contributing artifacts to this time capsule was given a brass ticket to the opening ceremonies, which will take place on noon on May 28th in 8113. So a golden ticket. I think they're actually brass, but if you have a golden ticket to the opening day ceremonies, you're in for quite a treat. Okay. Now, if anyone has any questions along the way, please feel free to ask them and we'll get them answered in real time. So I want to tell you a little bit about me. Again, my name is Travis Swann Taylor. I use my middle name for my book and any marketing that I do because I used to use Travis S. Taylor, but there's another Travis S. Taylor who is an author. He works in aerospace. I used to work in aerospace when I lived in DC, and the books that he writes are science fiction, and I love science fiction. So to differentiate between the two, sometimes I get messages for him I started spelling out my middle name. So I was born in St. Petersburg, Florida. Lived in Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Texas. I finished high school in Wyoming. I lived in Greece for more than 2 years, lived in DC, Maryland, Virginia. And then 87, I moved to Atlanta to go to school. Lived here for 15 years, moved to DC for 9 when I worked in aerospace. And I've been back in Atlanta for 10 years. So when I moved back, the city had changed so much. Atlantic Station popped up out of nowhere, and the Atlanta Botanical Garden had doubled in size. So I decided to start a tourism blog. So I started Wanderlust Atlanta. I was going to do that for a year to refamiliarize myself with the city. I was having so much fun. I'm still doing it now, more than 10 years later. Well, that blog helped get me this book deal. So the book is 111 places in Atlanta that you must not miss. 111 Places is a global series. So there are books about cities, 111 places for cities all over the world, and I got to do the one for Atlanta. The publisher is in Cologne, Germany. Some people ask, why 111? Why not 100 or 101? Why 111? So my publisher is in Cologne, Germany, and Cologne's lucky number is 11. Well, 11 aren't enough chapters to write a whole book, right? So they added a 1 to it, thus 111 places. What else? What else? Again, have any questions? Let me know. Let's go back to some other places. Okay. And okay, Marissa mentioned that the DeKalb History Center is mentioned in the book. Been a fan for many, many years. So the book is, the chapters are alphabetical, so it's not like having a favorite, you know, they get chapter 1 or anything like that. It's alphabetical. Most of the chapters are named for the place. Some of them are a little more clever. Oh, and each page, each place is 1 chapter, and each chapter has a page of copy and a page for photo. 1 chapter has 2 photos. And then if you see at the very bottom right, there's an information bar. It has the address, telephone, website, hours, how to get there. And there's a tip for another place that's nearby or relevant. So it's really 222 places. It's so much work, so much fun. The research, I did a lot of research at the Keenan Research Center at the Atlanta History Center. I did a lot of interviews, phone calls, emails, newspapers dating back to the early days of Atlanta. So it took me about 1.5 years to write the book. And there was about a year before that was meeting my editor and going through the proposal process. So the biggest takeaway from that is this was so much fun to research and write. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, still in DeKalb County, the Waffle House Museum. If you live in Atlanta or the South, you probably know what a dining empire the Waffle House is. A number of years ago, the Waffle House Corporation, or the company, purchased the very first Waffle House, which is in Avondale Estates, and turned it into a museum. I don't know where the numbers are with COVID going on, but at the time of the writing, there were 1,900 Waffle House restaurants. They're open 24 hours. In fact, the Waffle House is a gauge for how serious weather conditions are. Waffle House never closes. It's 24/7. If Waffle House closes, things are bad. To take cover, or, watch the news, figure out what's going on. But today, those restaurants range from Florida to New York, from Colorado to Arizona. And of course, we have tons here in Georgia. There's an open restaurant just down the street from the museum. The picture on the right, Horizon Theater, which is in Little Five Points, is also in the book, but Waffle House inspired a play that showed at Horizon Theater called Waffle Palace. With Waffle House's permission, the play was based on real life stories from Waffle House. So you can imagine how funny the play is. And then later on, they took Waffle Palace and turned it into Waffle Palace Christmas. So it's a growing sensation. At the holidays, you need a laugh. When things reopen, definitely check out Horizon Theater. Just down the street from the Waffle House Museum is one of my favorite new restaurants called My Parents' Basement Comic Book Bar. This place is so awesome. They only opened a few years ago in 2015, and they're open now. They're following all the CDC guidelines for safe service. They have, excuse me, they have comic books, they have arcade machines, they have collectibles, they have pinball machines, they have a full bar, a full restaurant, and a huge patio, which you can see in the lower right photo here. And good news for vegetarians, vegans, about a third of their menu is vegetarian, vegan, and I've had some of those, and they're amazing. This place is, you know, if I didn't tell you already, I'm a total geek, so this is, you know, my kind of place. It's a lot of fun going to. If you're a beer lover, that's another great reason to go here. They have 32 taps, and they're part of, within a mile radius, part of 100 taps. So Avondale Estates is a beer destination, and My Parents' Basement is just a really fun one. One of the things that I love about this book is it's diverse in many ways. It's geographically diverse, it's topic diverse, it's culturally diverse. So that I'm showing you a couple of restaurants in a row doesn't mean there are a ton of restaurants. There are only a few, but I'm sharing with you a few of my favorites. This is 57th Fighter Group. The restaurant's based on a bombed out French farmhouse during World War II. And their huge patio, they have a huge dance floor too. The whole place is quite massive. But if you're dining on the patio or inside the restaurant next to a window, the planes are practically landing on your table. The blue plane on the right, which is on the front lawn of the restaurant, you can't miss it going in, was flown by a longtime Atlantan, Robert Punchy Powell. It's a 51D Mustang, a plane that was flown in World War II. This one's actually a replica, but it's a very good replica, and throws the cool factor way up there. Any questions? You can put them into the chat or unmute yourself, and we'll be happy to answer. I'll be happy to answer those. Okay, also, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it looks like we actually had a question that said, were your places chosen based on fun, funkiness, historical significance, interesting layout, or location?
Love that question. That's yeah. Well, and it's the answer. The question is exactly what the book is. So the book was written first for locals. So it's an invitation for locals to get out and explore their own backyard. And it's not chock full of places that everyone knows. It's hopefully a lot of places that even locals do not know about. And secondly, it's written for seasoned tourists. So like I said, it's geographically dispersed. There's some places, most of the places are inside the perimeter, but personally, I don't think that you get the full Atlanta experience unless you also go OTP. We're a huge metro area, and there's some fascinating places OTP. I hope that answered the question. So yes, a little bit of everything. Some of it is the places that are well known, like the Atlanta History Center, the Atlanta Botanical Garden. Those are a couple that are in there, but it's through the lens of something that's not well known or not common knowledge. It's an interesting story, some quirky tidbits. Yeah, it's all the above that was mentioned in the question. Okay, moving on. This is the Fernbank Science Center in DeKalb County, not to be confused with the Fernbank Museum of Natural History. Fernbank Science Center is owned and managed by DeKalb County Public Schools. And it's in the book as a great place for a cheap date. The observatory is open on good weather days on Thursdays and Fridays, I believe. And it's free to go. So if you want to go start stargazing with a date, you can see the stars, the moon, sometimes Jupiter. I think the first time I ever saw Jupiter was here, which was absolutely incredible. But the center also has a museum, a planetarium, and the observatory. And I just recently found on a recent visit when I went to do some photographs for the book that they have an exact replica of Neil Armstrong's spacesuit, the one that he wore when he walked on the moon. So there's always something fascinating here. This spacesuit was moved from Truist Park, home of the Atlanta Braves, after they did a celebration for the 50th anniversary of the moon landing or the moonwalk. And is now, and there were only a few of these in the country. But ours got moved to Fernbank Science Center. So when that reopens, if you're a space enthusiast, definitely make your way there to see that. One of the most, this book is about places. It's not about people or events. One of the most ubiquitous places that I really, really wanted to include is Atlanta's Canopy. We are one of the greenest, actually we are the greenest city of our size in the country. About 47% of Atlanta is covered by canopy, covered by trees, and that makes it very easy to see in this photo. At least one of those is in DeKalb County. In the book, I mentioned a number of different ways that you can see Atlanta's canopy. From the Sundial restaurant at the Westin Peachtree Plaza downtown, the top of Stone Mountain, almost any high rise in Atlanta. This was a helicopter trip, which was only my second helicopter trip. But if you can, that's an incredible way to see the canopy. Back down on the ground. So at Piedmont Park, also known as Atlanta's favorite park, has a lot of history. Going back to some of its earliest history, if you've been, you've noticed the stone planters and steps. Those were placed there in 1895 for the Cotton States and International Exposition. That exposition was to show the world that Atlanta, post-US Civil War, was poised to make a contribution to US culture, local and international economy. It was basically a World's Fair, and the buildings there were amazing. Lake Claramere, the lake inside Piedmont Park, was built or expanded for this exposition. It started was 100 days, and the last day was December 31, 1895. There were 6,000 exhibits, and about 800,000 people came through that exposition. May not sound like a lot in some regards, but at the time, Atlanta's population was only 75,000. So 75,000 people. I'm sure we brought in a lot of people to host those 800,000 visitors, and they came from all over the world. A couple of things about the exposition that a lot of people don't realize is that the Liberty Bell was on display. I didn't know until I started researching that the Liberty Bell used to travel, and it wasn't too long after this exposition that it stopped traveling and now is in its permanent home. One of the shows that was put on here was Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, which included sharpshooter Annie Oakley. And so he came in, it was a very popular show, but his contract did not specify how long he had to stay. So Buffalo Bill was here for 1 week. It got cold. He packed up and left. So not all 800,000 visitors got to see that show, but a few lucky ones did. I was going to tell you about that one. There was, in one of the buildings, showcased for the first time in the US, was motion pictures. So motion pictures were introduced to the US public at this exposition in 1895. A lot of people did not go in to see it. It was hot inside the building, so the excitement didn't kick off, but it did happen here in Atlanta. Let's head downtown. So I love connecting the dots. This one is about the Carnegie Education Pavilion, which is across the street. It's on Peachtree Street, across the street from SunTrust Tower, Truist Tower. It's at the intersection of West Peachtree and Peachtree Street. And the columns used to build this pavilion are remnants of the Carnegie Library, which was further downtown. And the Carnegie Library was the first public library in the South. And this is now at Hardy Ivy Park. I'll talk about Hardy Ivy a few times in just a moment. The folks that you see pictured here are members of Cosplay Volunteers of Atlanta. During Dragon Con every year, Labor Day weekend, except for this year, more than 70,000 people come to Dragon Con and the Dragon Con Parade, which is Atlanta's largest parade. These folks, as members of Cosplay Volunteers of Atlanta throughout the year, they'll don their cosplay and they'll go to children's hospitals or nonprofit events benefiting children. They're warm-hearted and the kids love it, so I wanted to include them there. And it's a great place for photographs. Also at Hardy Ivy Park is Samuel Spencer was a railroad magnate, and this statue used to be at Hardy Ivy Park. It was originally at Atlantic Terminal, which was one of our grand train terminals in downtown Atlanta. The statue was there for a number of years. It was later moved to Hardy Ivy Park. It was also at Peachtree Station, which is our only passenger terminal now. There used to be hundreds of passenger trains coming through Atlanta, and now there's only the one train depot, and Samuel Spencer's statue was there. It's now in front of the Norfolk Southern building at Peachtree and 15th. And when I don't know if it'll be moved to the new Norfolk Southern headquarters when that building is done, which is behind the Fox Theater. But Spencer was, you can see the quote at the bottom, he passed away in an early morning train crash up north. And the New York Times said the South has lost one of the moving spirits in its recent revival. In America, one of its leading railroad experts. So if you study railroads, this is definitely a name that you'll hear. Also at Hardy Ivy Park was Atlanta's first public fountain. It's now the Erskine Memorial Fountain. It was placed there by Ruby Ward, who was the daughter of a federal judge appointed by President Andrew Johnson by her father. And the fountain it was placed at Hardy Ivy Park in 1896 and was there for only a few years before it was moved to Grant Park, where it sat for over 100 years in disrepair. It used to be multi-tiered. It used to have dippers hanging from it. The interesting thing about it, when it was placed at Hardy Ivy Park, 1,500 citizens came to the dedication, and the mayor gave a speech about the responsibility of government to upkeep things of this nature. Didn't happen, fell into disrepair, was moved. But now, in the last few years, the Grant Park Conservancy and Friends of Erskine Memorial Fountain are working very hard to restore it to its original glory. If you're going to Grant Park, if you're going to Zoo Atlanta, it's on that same street where the entrance is on, I want to say Cherokee, just down the right few blocks. So very cool to see that important piece of history. Thrilled that it's being preserved. Again, this was originally at Hardy Ivy Park. That place has been a busy little place. So Hardy Ivy, he was one of the earliest settlers of Atlanta. In fact, the lion that you see on the left is one of 4 that stand guard over the Marriott Marquis, a hotel designed by John Portman, and these statues of the lions were commissioned by Portman. A Belgian artist sculpted them. I love these statues. I think they're amazing. And inside the Marriott Marquis is a bar with a giant blue fin called Pulse. Hardy Ivy, the early settler, that's about where his cabin was. So in the midst of this modern marvel is a piece of history that if you don't, well, that a lot of people don't know about. So next time you're downtown feeling a little parched, go to Marriott Marquis, have a drink at the Pulse, and sit in a remarkable piece of history. Okay, so I had to include the CDC Museum, which is also in DeKalb County. This was on my list before COVID-19, before we learned about COVID-19. And a lot of people don't know about this one because it's one of those tourist destinations that's open only Monday through Friday during regular business hours. So a lot of it's frequented mostly by out-of-town visitors. But if you ever want to do a staycation post-COVID, I highly recommend putting this on your list. It's a good-sized museum. They also have a phenomenal art program. And the contamination suits that you see on the left, those are a photo op. I don't know if you'll still be able to don those and make photos post-COVID or not, but there are a number of interactive exhibits. And on the right is an iron lung that was used by an actual person for a number of years. The CDC Museum, it's historic, it's enlightening, it's nothing to be scared of. It's quite fascinating, and it's right here in DeKalb. One of my favorite local artists, Martin Daw, I think is also a favorite artist by a lot of Atlantans, but they just don't realize it. A lot of his works are throughout Atlanta. The most recent was the installation of the MLK statue at the Georgia Capitol building. It's the first statue of an African-American on the Capitol grounds. And there was a little bit of scandal about, not scandal, but fuss about it being placed at the back of the Capitol. But in that spot, he's overlooking Martin Luther King Jr. Drive and the King Center. So that's pretty cool. A few years before that, Martin did Dogwood Bench, which was a gift to the city of Atlanta by the Atlanta Dogwood Festival on the occasion of its 80th anniversary. This one I've dubbed the best I've been to Atlanta photo. It's interactive. You can sit on the dogwood branches and make photos with the Midtown skyline in the background. And this is just in front of Lake Clara Mere to help you more easily find it. The statue on the right was placed before the Olympics, and it's the World Athletes Monument. It was commissioned by the Prince of Wales Foundation for Architecture. And the year after it was dedicated, it was the spot where Atlantans mourned the death of Princess Diana. After the news, there were so many people bringing down flowers and other mementos to place at the base of this monument that it was estimated there were about 20,000. Atlanta police had to come in and direct traffic. But another beautiful piece by Martin Dahl. He has even more than these. This one I love. This photo, the photo on the left is, there are very, 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 very few people who have this photograph. There are 4 historic moments in this one photo. The blue wall you see is Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, which was it was our ball field quite some time ago. And then the 715, that piece of fence marks where Hammer and Hank Aaron's 715th home run flew over. And this property is now part of Georgia State, and they're doing a lot of construction there right now. So I don't know if you can actually get to it. This photo wasn't taken, it was taken earlier this year, but they have said on their website that regardless of what construction goes on, they're going to preserve this spot, spot in history. Also in the photo is the Olympic Cauldron from when Atlanta hosted the 1996 Centennial Olympic Games. And in February 2020, for the very first time, it was for the Olympic running trials. The Cauldron was relit. So it had not been lit since 1996 when Muhammad Ali lit it, and not again until February 2020. So I'm really proud of this photo because it was serendipitously walked around and was able to catch those 4 pieces of history. Any questions right now? Okay. I mentioned that I personally feel like you don't get the full Metro Atlanta experience unless you go OTP. So I've included, there's about 10% of the book are places that are OTP. One is the Sonoya Area Historical Society Museum, which is right off of their main street. They've recently organized the museum chronologically. So you go from the days when the land was occupied by Native Americans to present day, Sonoya being a film site for places like, or movies and films like The Walking Dead and Fried Green Tomatoes. Highly recommend a visit to this museum if you find yourself in Sonoya. Another favorite is the Booth Western Art Museum. It's in Cartersville, which is north of Atlanta. The Booth is the 2nd largest art museum in Georgia and the largest exhibition space for Western art east of the Mississippi. One of the cool things about, and their collection is huge and covers practically every medium you could think of. One focus, their primary focus is on contemporary artists, which adds to the cool factor of the museum. But they also have a president's gallery. Inside this gallery, they have a signed letter and portrait of every president from George Washington to present. So if you go to the booth, be sure to don't miss the president's gallery. This is my last one, then I'll open it up for questions. Just northeast of DeKalb County in Duluth is the Southeastern Railway Museum, which has, it's about 90 rail cars, including 4 working engines. A lot of them that you can go inside and see. Most of them are not restored, but you can still go inside and get a very good idea of what passenger train travel was like in the early history of locomotives. The one that I've pictured here, the Superb, is the only train that ever carried the body of a president who died while in office. That was Warren Harding. He had, halfway into his administration, he went on a speaking tour, and he ended up in Alaska. He was also the first US president to visit Alaska. And while he was there, he got to realize one of his childhood dreams, that of being a train engineer. So for 51 minutes, he got to drive, if you will, the train that he was on going through Alaska. After Alaska, they traveled to San Francisco. He wasn't feeling well and passed away a few days after arriving. And they put, on his way back, to get him back to Washington, D.C., they put his body on the Superb, elevated it so passersby could see. And on the trip from San Francisco to D.C., there were about 3 million Americans came out to pay their respects on that trip. If you've never been to the Southeastern Railway Museum, please go. It's amazing. And that is just a, here we go. So that's the tip of the iceberg of what's in my book. Hope you find these places fascinating as I do. There's a lot more. Anyone have questions? Anyone? Okay, well, if you're interested in buying the book, go to 111places.com and you can find the book easily from there. I'll also tell you about the 111 Places Challenge. If you buy the book and decide you want to start exploring deeply, join the challenge. You can do it on the website, and you can earn a free book when you hit the milestones of 50 places, 75 places, and 111 places. And again, they have guidebooks for cities all over the world. There are about 400 in the 111 Places series. About 90, 95 of them are in English. My collection includes places I've lived, places I've visited, and places I want to visit. Marissa, what else can we share?
It actually looks like we have another question. What's your, sorry, what's your all-time favorite place to visit?
Oh my goodness. And that is a question that I get on a regular basis, and the answer is always, it depends. There are so many. The Crypt of Civilization, even though you can't go inside, just being there for such a significant part of history has a really high cool factor. My parents' basement, love going there. It's just, geeky, cool, fun. The DeKalb History Center, of course. You have to go here. Put it on your list to visit post-COVID. And sign up for emails and social media so that you can see announcements for their programming and virtual events. Yeah, there's so many, there's so many. This is my favorite, right here.
I have a question.
Yes.
So what would have been the 112?
That's a very good question. I do have a list of places that didn't make the 111, and part of that is because as time goes on, places will change or become inaccessible. So I keep a list for places that I'll be able to add in future editions of the book. I have not ordered those yet, so, or I haven't placed them in order of which will appear first. So I don't have an answer, an exact answer for you, but I do have a running list. People also have asked, were you bribed? Does anyone bribe you to get into the book? It's like, no. I had complete charge over what goes in the book. Well, that and the publisher. What else do they ask? Any other questions?
Someone asked, where do you get helicopter rides?
At the one that I took was at PDK Airport in DeKalb County. It's off of Claremont Road, and there you had to go inside the airport to get to the helicopter company, but they're also at 57th Fighter Group. They have biplane rides, and you can order that online, then go to 57th Fighter Group, and they take off from that runway. The helicopter ride, I forget which company I did. There are a number of companies that do rides, and they depart from PDK Airport. Some of them depart from Lake Lanier, an airport up there. When I did mine, so most of the places in the book are free or have very minimal access or admission. That's one of the things that we like to do with this series. So when I did my helicopter ride, which I'd done before I started writing this book, but I could not use those photos for Atlantis Canopy, I did a Groupon. So it was half of what it paid otherwise. Anyone else?
Did you know about all of these places yourself, or did someone direct you to some of them?
A lot of them I knew because I'd been writing my blog, Wanderlust Atlanta, for 10 years. At that point, 7 or 8 years. So a lot of them I already knew, but most of the others I researched. There's one that a friend did tell me about, and I'm always open to the list that I'm working for future editions. If anyone has an idea for a place, I'm more than happy to hear about that. But there was one place in the book that a friend told me about. The others I found on my own. That place was the McPherson Monument. It's the only Union monument from the U.S. Civil War.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What's your favorite viewpoint of Atlanta?
Viewpoint?
There's a lot of good spots, yeah, but what's your favorite
There really
spot
are. Coming in from, well, a lot of us know about Jackson Street Bridge. If you're a fan of The Walking Dead, that was the poster for season 1. Traffic going out was at a dead stop, and Rick was horseback going into Atlanta. So that was from Jackson Street Bridge, and it's a very, very popular place for photos with the skyline. There's some traffic there, so be careful if you go, but it's a great shot of the Atlanta skyline, and you're pretty close to downtown. Well, but what a lot of people don't realize is that the Atlanta skyline pretty much is Peachtree Street, all the way from Buckhead into downtown. So coming in from the west or coming in from the east, you get great views of the Atlanta skyline.
Yep.
One that I really like is coming in from like Six Flags on I-20. For a long stretch, you get a great view of the Atlanta skyline.
I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but my favorite is the koi pond at the Jimmy Carter library.
Oh, yeah.
It's a beautiful spot.
It
too.
really is. It really is. Some beautiful statuary and a phenomenal museum. It's actually in the book for a number of reasons. Yeah, I love it. That's a great pond, a great view.
A couple of others. Did you visit Tyler Perry Studios?
I did not. I would love to. I don't know if they're offering public tours yet. I heard rumor that they might, but last time I checked, they weren't offered yet. Hopefully they will in the future. And if they do, I'll definitely be there.
And then is there still a museum at the Federal Reserve Bank?
As far as I know, there is. Every place in the book I visited, I went to personally. And that's a really cool museum. Again, it's one of those that a lot of Atlantans don't know about because it's only open Monday through Friday during business hours. But you get to see and learn so much about money. And the last time I went, they even gave you a bag of shredded money that you could take home and take home with you.
Is the Met covered in the book?
I'm sorry, the what?
Met, M-E-T in capital letters?
Tell me more what that is.
I'm not sure.
Not ringing a bell.
Old Chandler warehouses? Chandler warehouses?
No, that's not in the book. So if someone wants to tell me more about it, maybe it'll be in a future edition.
All right, if there are no other questions, I just want to thank everyone for coming to this, and thank you, Travis. This was a wonderful presentation, and make sure to get your book. So if you don't have it, I put the link on his website so you can purchase it there, but it's just 111places.com/111places in Atlanta.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you. I came last time. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.